I made a fully interactive audiobook in just 3 days, and this is how. Hi, I'm Nervous, and for the second Nervous Breakdown, I am going to be going over my creative process for how I created VIP, the interactive audiobook. This is a Five Nights at Freddy's book that released during the 10-year anniversary celebration, and it is not technically a full-length novel. It is a shorter adventure, but it is the first. It's like the number 0 in the series of these new interactive novels being made by Scott Cawthon and Scholastic with their AFK series or line of books. The week before, which released just this month, is the technical issue number 1 in the series, but this was our first taste of what these interactive novels were going to be, and I, for one, was blown away. These novels bring a fresh take to that whole choose your own adventure style of novel, where along the way you are able to make decisions that impact the story. There are multiple endings and lots of what they call game overs, where you have to start from the beginning again and try to make some better choices. When I first read through VIP, I did so on a live stream, and as I was reading it, I found myself really interested in the idea of making a full audiobook version of the story. And there are a couple of reasons why. So we'll start with the why, then we'll go into the how, and finally we'll end this episode on questions you submitted to me, and I'll do my best to answer them. So first, let's go into the why. Well, first of all, I just kind of assume that we're never going to get audiobooks for these interactive novels. It would be very unlikely at the very least. Now, sure, I could have put more time and more in general into this audiobook, but quite frankly, that is not the way my brain works. The longer that I spent on this project, the more I was going to second and third and fourth guess myself. And I just wanted to be able to put it out there and have it ready and available for you as soon as possible, and quite frankly, get it out of my hands as soon as possible so it didn't sit in the ether for a long time. When I first started this process, I really did want to reach out to other people and have a bunch of different voices for this, but then I realized that I was going to be dealing with multiple different people's microphones and schedules and a lot of things that may and probably would have made this project take a lot longer. So instead, I decided, you know what? I'm going to make this my project. I'm going to spend this week doing it. And when I say a week, I really mean 3 days. I have a job, and I also have a level of work-life balance that I must maintain because I want to maintain good mental health practices. I know good and well that if I went full force, constantly putting everything I can into my channel, that eventually, and sooner rather than later, I will experience burnout like no other. So I try to be very intentional with the amount of time I take into a project, which means giving myself 3 days to complete this was the only way it was going to get done. But before we get too much into the weeds on the how I did this, I want to give my other reason why. I love voice acting. I've never really been given the opportunity to explore these skills in the real world, in the professional world. Quite frankly, I'm just not set up for it. And I haven't been. And while I do, in many cases, regret not putting myself out there more and just seeing what might happen, the fact of the matter is, I haven't done it. And this felt like a really fun way to explore what that would be like in the way that I'm able to do it. So I did it. And that's really the crux of why I wanted to do this. But that's not as interesting, in my opinion, as the how I did this. The VIP interactive novel is a bit of a beast, despite not being very long, particularly some of the games that you play throughout. So let me summarize very briefly what VIP is, and then I can talk to you really a lot better about how exactly I went about mapping it all out in order to record and then edit this audiobook. So if you don't know what VIP is, I do have a video already summarizing it that you can go watch. You can just watch the summary part and then pop right back over here. There are also plenty of other summaries online if you don't want to listen to mine for some reason, but you should listen to mine because, you're already here, so you might as well. And since you're already here and you've made it this far in the video, maybe consider subscribing too, along with everything else, Maybe liking the video, even leaving a comment below for me to give a little heart, because I try to be as interactive in the comments as I can be. But very, very briefly, VIP is a story about Devin and his little brother Ike. Devin has won a VIP pass to spend all day at Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex, but his mom is making him bring his little brother Ike. Upon arriving, they find themselves at a kiosk where a pig appears. Ike is overwhelmed with glee. He loves this little pig, but Devin is not so sure about him. Ultimately, you will find yourself bringing VIP along in a little gamepad with you, and he will eventually find himself challenging you. He takes your brother Ike and hides him away somewhere and tells you have to score 1,000 points by the end of the day playing the various games at the Pizzaplex, and if you don't, you have to spend the night at the Pizzaplex and try again tomorrow. So that's the basics, right? That's the very basic overview of this story. And it's those games that end up being the most challenging pieces to truly map out. So let's really get into how I did this. First, I have to show you my Word document. So yes, people asked me if I visually mapped out this, and perhaps that would have been easier, but my brain operates as a list. I am a list girly, and so I decided to just open up a Word document and make a list. So for example, if you use your VIP pass at the terminal, that would take you in my version of the ebook to page 91 out of 1,521. And I wrote that down just like that. But this was my first step, just writing down every single choice and the page where that choice starts. And this process probably took me, I don't know, an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. It didn't take me too terribly long, but I was proofreading multiple times, so I was going back and forth to make sure I got it. Another thing I did as I went through was mark specific areas. I didn't know if this was going to end up coming in handy later or not, but it was kind of good for me to group specific things. So I marked, here's where the Balloon Boy room is, and here's all the different choices that happen in the Balloon Boy room. Here's the door area and all of the different choices that happen in that security door and red door, all of those things. And then Monty's Maze, and this is where I started having to use color coding. But we'll get to that in a second. You see it on here, I will explain it shortly, and a lot of the color coding that was there is not there anymore, but this is where I mapped out all of the different page numbers. This means I will not miss anything upon editing, right? So at this point, I had mapped out every choice and I felt comfortable recording my audio for the book, which meant that I needed to create a recording space. If I had recorded it out here, you kind of can hear, if you're paying attention, a slight echo because I'm just in my living room right now. I needed a place that was not going to have as much of that sort of reverb, right? So I had to transform my closet into a recording space, which didn't take too terribly long, but it also was not a perfect situation either. I live by the road, so everywhere I was recording, that was just a part of it. And unfortunately, there is a moment in my recording, it's during a choice, so it's not during the story, but during me telling you which choice to make, you can hear a car go by, and I'm so endlessly frustrated by that. My closet isn't by the road, but for some reason, man, it was still picking it up no matter what. This is supposed to be a microphone that does not pick up that stuff around, but at the same time, it's not that expensive of a microphone. So unfortunately, I'm just not at a place where I can justify ordering something of that caliber, a microphone that probably would have been a lot better for recording this, but it just is what it is. So we work with what we have, right? I hung my microphone up where my clothes usually hang. I just clamped it up there and it fell all the way down, to where my voice, where I would be sitting. I added pillows to the floor so that I would have something to sit on. And my laptop had to be in there with me too, because I had no other device with which to record my audio. This is another unfortunate thing. I wish I had something like that to record with, because my laptop fan was going cuckoo bananas. And I feel like that also led to some less than stellar audio being recorded. But again, it is what it is. Recording, understandably, took measurably longer than just mapping out all of my choices. Not only because physically speaking just takes a lot out of you, but as I was recording, I had to make sure that I was recording every single choice. I decided the most efficient way to record the audio would be to go from page 1 to page 1521. So that's what I did for most of it. See, there are a number of choices in here, not a ton, but a handful, where making that choice in the ebook doesn't really make sense for an audiobook. Just because the way that the book takes you from page to page is not exactly the same as the way an audiobook is going to take you from timestamp to timestamp. Ultimately, it's just the way that they decided to organize the ebook, and I assume to them it made sense. I'm not going to question their methods, even though it did lead to one glitch in the ebook that I was reading where it was supposed to just take me to the next page and it actually took me a little too far. Luckily, the audiobook doesn't have that issue, so point for me. So most of the recording just went page by page, but there are these specific instances a lot at the beginning where instead of going, oh, now proceed to this timestamp, I just keep reading. And I did this with one of the endings as well. I think I split up one of the endings and then I kept the other ending altogether because it was just going to be a confusing way to order the book. So I decided to make some changes along the way, but for the most part, I just read the book from forward to back. And this is where these page numbers really came in handy. Throughout recording, I would use these page numbers to make sure I could come back later and edit this properly. Instead of just reading through, every time I was at a new choice, I would say what page number I was on and match them up with the choices from my list. This is where that color coding stuff comes into play. At the beginning, I was just marking things as bold as soon as I had done them, right? So say I got through getting started and I was done recording that and I was on to whatever the next thing was. I would just put this in bold to let myself know, okay, I have recorded that. And I would go down the list and make sure I did that for every single choice. That way, I could not possibly miss anything. And I got to the point where I was in Monty's Maze. This is where recording and mapping and everything else became incredibly difficult because a lot of the choices are the same thing. Go left, go right, go forward. Go left, go right, go left, go forward, go to hopefully be as clear as possible. I would get to a new section like Monty's Maze or Roxy Raceway or Fazer Blast, and what I would do is make sure I marked every page number that started a specific choice. So I would say, okay, page 646 is where you have the choice to go left, forward, or right. And here's the left, forward, or right options for this particular page. And so I would say I'm on page whatever, and that would let me know I was recording the choice for that left. Because Monty's Maze is so crazy, right? So when I got to this part, I would put all of this section in red because I hadn't recorded it yet. So this would be all entirely in red like this. Okay, I haven't recorded 646 choice yet, and I haven't recorded any of the choices that you have from there, right? So once I got there, I would be like, okay, I've recorded this. I'd let it go blue to let me know that I had gotten there, right? And then as I was recording each choice, I would turn them blue because this meant I had recorded some of this choice path, right? Where it goes, but not all of it. Then as I had done all 3 of them, if I'd recorded all 3 of them, then I would turn them back black. This would let me know that I had not only recorded the page where you make the choice, but also all 3 choices that you could make from that moment. That is probably the most complicated part of all this, and what took me the longest when I got to editing. We'll get there. Making sure that all of your left, forward, and rights take you to the correct ones, the one that match the ones from the book. That was my biggest challenge. And there were 2 choices in particular in Monty's Maze that made me so unsure of myself that I literally just put question marks after them as I was recording. This was where you'd make a choice to go right, and then there was another choice for going left or forward or something, and they took you back to the beginning of the maze, but there was nothing on the previous page that really insinuated that what you would be doing would take you back to the original page. So what I had to do here was I opened up a different version of the audiobook. I was using the Amazon version, I opened up the Barnes & Noble version, and made sure those things still took me to the beginning of the maze, and they both did. And as far as I can tell, that is the correct way, but it was really uncomfortable for me recording it because I was just like, man, if I mess this up, I've messed up the audiobook. So that was to me the biggest challenge, was making sure Monty's Maze was 100% accurate. The other 2 games are not nearly as intricate. There are only so many choices you can make, and it's really kind of crazy that Monty's Maze is this intricate to me. This is where the steps to the process start to overlap. How I chose to record was I woke up and I got started recording around 10:30 a.m. on Tuesday, knowing that my video was going up on Friday. I got in there at 10:30 and the worst thing happened. I was dehydrated from having been asleep, and I was making so many gross mouth noises. It was infuriating. It was unbearable. I couldn't stand it. And so I had to wait and drink water and wait for my body to be more hydrated, for my mouth to stop being disgusting. And I was finally able to start recording somewhere probably around 11:15, 11:30. I then recorded until roughly 3 or 3:20. I only took a break to drink water or to take my dog out to go to the bathroom. Around that time is when my partner got home, and I knew I wasn't going to be able to record while they were moving around the house. So I waited for them to take our dog to class, and then I got right back to it. Then dog came home from class, and my partner went into their office and promised not to leave, or at least let me know if they were coming out of the room, just so it wouldn't mess up my recording. And I recorded until around 10 or 10:30 that night. I did as much as I could that first day because I knew that on the next day I'd probably have that same issue of making mouth noises and being dehydrated. And I also knew that I had to edit this video, which is what I spent the rest of my time doing. Since my recording sessions were so long, there were multiple instances where I was feeling dehydrated and I was getting back into that mouth noise thing, right? So during those times, I would stop recording, sip on my water, and go back to the beginning of my recording and start editing down, if I said or I need to repeat that, or if I got tongue-tied, or there were some times when I just took multiple takes of something to kind of see which emotion or which voice for a character kind of fit better. And I have one particular clip from this that I think is honestly hilarious, where I was trying to decide how exactly I wanted the old security guard man's voice to sound, because I didn't want him to sound like my old man voice is like this, and I didn't know. I was like, I feel like he should sound a little more in charge than that. So here is a clip of me workshopping the older security guard character.
Hey, who's in there? Hey, who's in there? Hey, who's in there? Hey, who's in there? Hey, who's in there?
A man's voice calls from the hall to your left.
To your left. Hey, who's in there?
There were just multiple instances of that, right? So I'm editing that down as I'm rehydrating, getting back to my normal voice self. But of course, I was running on a limited time schedule, and there were a number of instances where even though I drank the water and I took a break, my mouth was still making these gross noises that I hated. I found myself trying to move my mouth differently to avoid them, which was then affecting the way that the recording sounded. It was so, oh my goodness. This is like where I began to lose hope. Quite frankly, there was so much of me that was like, I'm never going to get all of this recorded, or people are going to listen to this and they're going to think that it's disgusting and they hate me. So there are a number of times where when I was making the choices, I was doing the like, if you move here, do this. If you want to do this, go here. That I was just like, the mouth noise is just there, girl. I really, really hope that it's not making people not want to listen to this at all. It's very gross, and I'm so sorry, and I promise I did everything I could to avoid it, but it's very infrequent. But there is a trick that I used at a certain point to not have to use some of those bad takes, and that is when the choices were the same, and I knew I had a good take of a specific choice, so I would edit that in instead. So there are some instances where you may hear me reusing the exact same piece of a recording, but it worked. It worked, okay? So at this point, I'm recording and then I'm editing when I can't record, etc., right? And that goes on until about midnight on Tuesday. Then I woke up Wednesday and I started again. I probably started recording around 10 o'clock and I finished the recording completely. I finished everything I needed to record, or at least so I thought, around 1 or 2 that day. I ended up having to go back and record some things again, but at that time I thought that I was done and I was really excited. So by Wednesday at around 2 o'clock, right, I'm fully in editing mode. So while this was a pretty easy process as far as skill is concerned, it was monotonous and time consuming because every single time I said, I'm on page number whatever, I had to make a text box saying, okay, this is the part of the recording where she's at this page number. Because all of those have to be converted into timestamps after I'm done editing. And at this point, I had to go back and do all of that color coding again to make sure that I had made a text box for every single page number and choice. I'll kind of show you a visual of what I'm talking about because I feel like it'll be easier to see a visual of it, but I would make my thing that says, okay, this is this choice. This is the choice that happens on page 690. This is the choice that happens. This is the page number where that choice happens. And these are the 2 page numbers it takes you to. So that way later, when I get to the part where I recorded that page number, now I'll know which page numbers to look for to convert into those same timestamps. So now it's just a lot of this, a lot of editing down a portion of the video, putting up my little text boxes, making sure my text boxes stay connected to the part of the video that they're supposed to be a part of. And this was, I don't want to say a sleepless night because I think I ended up stopping around 3:30 in the morning on Wednesday, technically Thursday at this point. But I got as far as I could with it, right? I went to work on Thursday with the hope that I would have time to work on this, but I quite literally got interrupted and talked to by every single one of my coworkers. And no tea, no shade to them. I'm at work. I don't need to be doing my YouTube stuff while I'm at work, but I wasn't able to do my actual work either. It was just a lot that day. It was a very, very talkative day for everybody in the office. Again, I don't think that any of them are going to watch this, but if you do, I'm not mad at you. It's my own time management problems, right? I gave myself 3 days to do this and I'm on the 3rd day. This is it. This is the final time. So Thursday was an entirely sleepless night because I had to go back and return every single page number into a timestamp and make very sure that from that point forward, I didn't edit anything before the point where I had made the timestamp, because otherwise the timestamp would shift. And that is where I went through my list again, and I started off all over. Now I have all my page numbers red or not in bold, because I haven't created the timestamp for that moment yet. As I went, I would go through and be like, okay, this is the timestamp where this is at. And that, if you go down the Word document, is where you'll see where I started making a list of timestamps instead of a list of page numbers. Now, I still was utilizing my list of page numbers throughout this to make sure I got every single choice. So now, on my list down here, I just have the page number, the name of what is happening at that timestamp, and then the actual timestamp itself. So every single page number has a corresponding timestamp, and every single timestamp and page number has a name, so that when I'm doing my chapters, which we'll get to in a moment, they will look like this on the video. And when I started off creating these timestamps and plugging them into the video with text boxes, they would not be in bold. So they would start off like this, they wouldn't be in bold, and then as I plugged that timestamp in and I knew that I had it on my timeline, like done, right, finished, then I would put it in bold. And I wouldn't be done until every single one of those timestamps was bold. I finished this probably around 6, maybe 5:30 in the morning, Friday morning. That is when I was like, okay, I'm done. So I set it to export and then went to sleep for the amount of time it would take the video to export. Luckily, it didn't take that long to export because it was just audio and text. They didn't have to do a rendering of my video or anything like that. So when I woke up and had to go to work, it was ready to go. It's Friday morning and I'm uploading my video and I'm super stoked about it. I've got it going, and after it's uploaded, I have to make sure that I upload it with enough time to test out the entire thing. Friday morning. It is Friday morning and this video goes out 4 p.m. on Friday before I'm testing this to make sure it works. And again, I tested it before I uploaded it to YouTube, and it worked before I uploaded it to YouTube, but after I uploaded it to YouTube, I have to try it all again. And I run into 2 distinct problems. 1, YouTube refuses to make chapters out of this. No matter how I format it, it won't turn them into chapters, despite the fact that it's supposed to be that way. So I'm like, okay, whatever, it will just be the timestamps, that's fine. I'm going through and the timestamps are working and I'm really, really excited until all of a sudden, they're not. YouTube arbitrarily added 11 seconds of runtime to my video. And it means that as the time goes on, the timestamps don't match up by 11 seconds. And if all of that wasn't wild enough, this was happening on my birthday. So I'm at work on my birthday, finding out that my timestamps don't work after about the 30-minute or so mark of this like over 3-hour long video. And I realized that it's just not gonna work. It's spoiling things. It's not gonna work. Here's the thing is I tried to make sure I avoided this by putting this amount of time in between timestamps. I was like, I'm putting too much time in between the timestamps, but I was like, no, I need it because YouTube is gonna add seconds to this video. It didn't matter. They didn't add 3 seconds like I'm used to them doing. They added a whole 11 seconds. And to correct this, it meant I had to go through every single choice on the YouTube video, learn the new timestamps, go back to my Adobe Premiere project and change every single timestamp to the new one. And it was awful too, because when I was first editing it, I was like, oh, well, you just copy and paste, you just copy and paste, you just copy and paste. But when I was going back, I couldn't copy and paste because it was actually going to take more effort to figure out where exactly I'm copying and pasting everything. So instead, I am having to painstakingly scrub through my entire video to get this done in time. Then I had to re-export the video and re-upload it to YouTube and hope that they added the exact same 11 seconds that they did the first time, or my timestamps were still gonna be wrong. I was so scared that my video was going to end up going out late, or that no matter what I did, it wasn't going to work. So I just had to re-upload, cross my fingers, and hope for the best. So I'm tired and I'm scared and I'm just having to leave it up to the YouTube gods to decide to grant me a favor on this day. And luckily, they did. When I rewatched the video the second time I uploaded it, I clicked on every single timestamp, and they all took you to exactly the right place. It was done. I put in my description letting people know this was not professionally recorded and to give me some grace on the places where I messed up. I also asked and never received any sort of indication of anywhere that I may have messed up. And to me, that means that I did it and I didn't mess up and it's good and it's available for you to watch right now. And I'm so happy at how it came out. This is Five Nights at Freddy's, an interactive novel. Issue number 0, VIP. You just won 2 special VIP passes to Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. You hold up your VIP pass. This thing doesn't work. She stares at it curiously. Oh, you must be Devin.
Welcome to Freddy Fazbear's Mega Pizzaplex. I am very informative pig.
VIP fixes his gaze on you. If you promise to stick with VIP all day, proceed to the timestamp on the right. If you don't make a promise you can't keep, proceed to the timestamp on the left. Is it perfect? No. Are there moments where the gets a little aggressive if you're listening using headphones specifically? Yes. Is my Monty voice good in any realm? No.
I can't believe you fell for that.
There are things about this that are not perfect, but it is a testament to what I was able to do in 3 days to go from having nothing at all to having a fully functioning audiobook for you to interact with. You can make all of the choices that you want to make, and instead of having to read, you can just listen to me tell you what to do. It works, and I, not to toot my own horn, am pretty proud of what I was able to accomplish in such a short amount of time. Of course, this is not a traditional 3-hour-long video that YouTube is willing to push out into the algorithm. There aren't visuals, it is just an audiobook, and of course, it's not really performing very well, but I'm really proud of it, and that's really all that matters. So I hope that this was an interesting sort of look at how I accomplished it. Okay, so now we are moving on to questions. And yes, everything changed. My phone ran out of storage and it would take me way too long to download all the videos that I just recorded and then delete them off the phone and blah, 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 blah. Quite frankly, this is a nervous breakdown and this is how it breaks down, okay? We go with the flow on these days. So I'm gonna answer questions from my webcam and we're all gonna be okay with that and nobody's gonna be weird about it. And then there's also questions here about the VIP book itself. So I'll answer those as well, just because, why not? So we'll start at the first question and work our way back up to the most recent question. So, and some of these have been posted within the last couple of minutes, so some of you got in like right under the wire. So this first question is from Bolt Indie, and it is, was there anything you picked up upon rereading or reading it out loud? Sometimes you can find more stuff doing it than if you only read once. I'll say I don't know if there was any big revelations that I came to upon rereading it, because by the time I was making the audiobook, I'd really read through every single page multiple times because I was making that video that I made a couple weeks ago about this. But when I was recording the audio for it, it forced me to speak with that level of emotion that the characters were feeling. And it really did enhance the level of fear that Devin had for me. And also the number of times that he has like self-reflection. Funnily enough, if you really play the story the way it's meant to be played, Devin doesn't go through as much growth. He does still get to his main thing of understanding that he needs to be probably kinder to his brother, but there are a number of lessons that Devin sort of learns throughout the mistakes he makes. Like if you make the wrong choice and he doesn't get up to the 1,000-point score by the end of the day or whatever, if you make one of those choices that doesn't really get you the 300 points or whatever that you need. Or if you're not in the Mo, you know, if you're in the Mo, you get to 1,000 points, no problem. And that, I guess, is the other thing that I thought of upon rereading it, is when I was making my initial video, I was talking about, okay, here are the steps you need to get to 1,000 points. And I wasn't really taking into consideration that if you just go in the Mo the first time, you can get 1,000 points way faster. So you don't actually have to succeed at all of the games in order to do that. The other thing that I find interesting is that because of the way the game, the book, is set up, all of the people who are at the Pizzaplex are still those same people in the Mo. Obviously, the staff and everybody else will be the same. How are they replicating the guests within the Mo? Because if you get in the Mo and you go back to Roxy Raceway, the little girl is still there. She's the same person. The boy is still there. This is really weird, right? And again, you could chalk all this up to it's an audiobook, or sorry, it's an ebook, and that's just the way that it is. So they could, once you put the Mo on, create a situation where it's a completely different trek, where things are similar but different because you're in a virtual reality helmet. It would be 2 times as long of a book, right? Because you'd have to have a completely separate thing. And this is supposed to be a shorter experience. So you could chalk it up to all that. But it's worth noting, if it's intentional, it would suggest that if you have a profile within the Pizzaplex's system, they have a full digital makeup of you that understands your brain and everything, and the decisions that you would make in a specific situation. That is very interesting. I just have to say it. It's very interesting. Those are the main 2 things that I noticed upon rereading it. This next person is Freddy Fazboy, and they're just asking why I'm a nice person and stuff. Thank you. You guys are great. You're just very sweet. So moving on to the next question. So this person technically has 2 questions. Their name is Emerald D58, or Emerald 58, sorry. Technically I have 2, but one is more geared towards the question. 1, what was your favorite part about VIP? And 2, are you planning on doing an audiobook for the week before? I'll answer part 2 first because it's easier. The answer is no. The reason why I was comfortable making an audiobook for VIP, but not for the week before or any of the things that are going to come afterwards, is because the VIP ebook does not specify that you cannot record it. The week before very specifically says you cannot record this without written permission from the publisher. It's not a video game. Video games are usually a lot different about these kinds of rules, and some of them aren't. There are some video games that also say you cannot record them, you cannot stream them without permission from the publisher. To me, it's the same thing. If the book tells me, the people who wrote the book tell me you cannot record this without written permission from the publisher, I'm gonna adhere to that. Other people have uploaded audiobooks of the Five Nights at Freddy's series, and they are monetized, and they have never been harassed or asked to take a video down or gotten in any kind of trouble. And that may jump back to where it says the publisher doesn't have any control and does not assume any responsibility for author or third-party websites or their content. Maybe that's where they feel that they're covered on that. Maybe they're just like, you know what, I'm just gonna do it, and if I get in trouble, I'll take it down, and that'll just be that. I think all that's fair. Whatever people want to do is fine, but I will not be doing it for that reason. The other half of your question, what was my favorite part about VIP? Roxy Raceway was my favorite part about VIP. Devin has a number of moments where he feels kind of like he's transforming as a person. He's coming of age in a way. He's maturing in real time. And that one act of kindness really seemed to shift his perspective on things. I have not been terribly shy about the fact that I did make Devin sound like Gregory in VIP. I do not mean for that to sway anybody. It's not that I think that Gregory and Devin are the same person, but I do think there's a very interesting narrative parallel where it seems like they meet this girl who really loves Roxy and sort of have an instant connection with her and like being around her. Now, we don't know if Gregory was ever really Cassie's friend or not, but I like the idea that they were really friends, so I think that was my favorite part of that, because I kind of felt like I got this glimpse of potentially how this, selfish, self-concerned boy met this kind person and it potentially shifted their perspective on how they see the world around them. Official Joke Mob asked, well, now we'll know the process. I'm just curious if you think the book is canon, and if it is, which parts? I think there is a high likelihood that this book is canon to the games. That is how I'm treating it right now, that VIP is a canon in the universe book. And part of the reason why is because The Week Before is now out, and I've read through it, and it's very clear that that is a prequel. If they're all in the same series, I don't like the idea that VIP is completely separated from the game universe, but The Week Before is literally a prequel to Five Nights at Freddy's #1. That's how I'm moving forward. Riley B. Criley asks, I'm curious about how you mapped it all out. We talked about this. You tried to keep a digital flowchart going as you read and got so tangled up, especially during Monty's maze. For real. And this is the person that asked, did you have a visual aid or something to help you along the way? And that was that Word document that I showed you. And then the other thing is also between the digital VIP book and having the physical copy of The Week Before, did you find it easier or harder to read or map out in one format or the other? Here's what I'll say. On one hand, I really preferred the ebook because there was no way to see what was coming next. As you're flipping through The Week Before, unfortunately, there are a number of instances where you can tell if it's like, if you do this, go here. It's very clear that it's about to be a game over because it's on the literal other side of the page. Like, this side of the page tells me to go here for this, and this side of the page is telling me that it's a game over. So I know automatically not to make that choice. On the other hand, it made it a lot easier to read, to not get stuck going back and forth and back and forth. I went through and made every choice and was able to read every choice in way less time. Overall, it's a longer book, so, it took me a while. But I was able to, map out I see the trek that gets you from here to here a little bit faster than I could on VIP, specifically because I could just kind of flip like this. Again, that being said, it's a lot easier to lore hunt in an ebook. I wanted to look for a specific something that I remember reading in VIP. All I had to do was click the little magnifying glass and type in what I was looking for, and I could find the page number it was on immediately, highlight it, and then it would be saved in a list of highlighted text. It's a lot easier to do that than it is to just what I will eventually have to do with this, which is mark it all up, get different color post-it stuff, highlight things, if I really want to keep track of everything that's in this book. Or I'm going to have to just buy it again as an audio or as an ebook, and I really am not super looking forward to that. But, if I have to do it, I have to do it, and I'm not going to complain. Do you think this book puts a lot of weight on Tales games, or do you think they're taking elements and starting a new Tales games? I agree with some other people who have said that Secret of the Mimic is really going to tell us whether or not Tales games is the thing, or if Tales are their own stories. Personally, I don't like Tales games. And I hate to say that because it feels awful to say, but it's the fact of the matter. But where it says, do you think this puts a lot of weight on Tales games? I would say yes. I think that VIP is a very heavy piece of evidence for the Tales books, stories, whatever, being in the continuity of the games. It's hard that this is issue number 0 of something. If it was issue number 1 and then in the week before was number 2 and so on and so forth, I think it would be a lot easier to just be like, oh, yep, well, they're all within the game's continuity. And if this is proving that there are elements of the Tales Games Pizzaplex that exist in the literal security breach Pizzaplex, then there's really not any arguing about it. The only thing that makes it a little uncomfortable, and this is just me talking, I don't even know if this is really how I feel, but the only thing that it could potentially make it uncomfortable is the fact that the issue is number 0. So this could be disconnected from the rest of them. I don't love that. At the same time, we've never heard of this pig before. I don't know, man. There's a whole number of things, but I just think that I would say yes. It puts a lot of weight on Tales games. Do you think the very informative pig is a part of the Mimic branch? So for me, it's complicated because we don't fully understand the timeline of how we get from what part of the Tales books does VIP fall in. And I don't have that fully mapped out. I don't have a good timeline on my own of that mapped out, which is what makes it so hard for me to decide. But then the very next question is, do you think that Vanny was involved with VIP? I think it would make more sense if it was like a Vanny Gregory thing. If it's not the Mimic, it's almost like VIP, very informative pig, is something that reminds me a lot of Gregory because of all of the magic and stuff that's involved with it. It reminds me of Vanny because of like, we're gonna have fun. I wanna have fun, let's have fun, but having a really twisted idea of what fun is. But then, if you go in the Mo, there's virtual informative pig, and that more or less seems more connected to what would be the Mimic. So it's hard because of course they're both digital entities. Because they're both technically digital entities, but the virtual informative pig is the one that repeats itself, like does the Mimic behavior. So VIP could have been made by potentially Gregory, potentially Vanny, and then the Mimic program within the Mo is mimicking it. I hope that makes sense. But that's where my head goes when I think about what VIP is. It took me a really long time to get to that, but hopefully I cut down a bunch of mad ramblings. Do you think the yellow Glamrock Chica was intentional or a mistake? Do you think VIP was used as a vessel before the storyteller happened? If so, then does that contradict Tales? I think VIP could be using leftover storyteller programming due to its many references to classic fairy tales, tall tales, Aesop's fables, things like that. It seems to have a lot of that knowledge in it. That's more how I feel about that. So no, I don't think it contradicts Tales. Do you think the level 10 room is VIP's room in Security Breach? It's possible. I haven't mapped out where that would take you, but if there's a room we can't get in because we don't have high enough security clearance in Security Breach, which there are these rooms, it would not surprise me if one of them is supposed to be VIP's room, and that's one of those things that was, oh, this won't make sense now, but it'll make sense later. It could also just be that they meant to have more stuff in Security Breach and had to cut it, which is unfortunately a really big possibility, but there's a chance. I don't know if I think that, but I don't think it's off the table. Do you think the Chica hideout in Security Breach was Ike's hideout? We know Ike was hiding in the photo booth, or was being hidden in the photo booth during VIP, so we know that was not literally his hideout. However, I do believe that those hideouts are related to VIP, which is why I believe, one of the major reasons why I believe it's in the games. Or if it's a narrative parallel, at the very least, it's telling us there was an entity in the Pizzaplex who was forcing kids to hide out in the Pizzaplex to go on these challenges for that entity or person. So whether that was Gregory doing some shady stuff, whether that was Vanny doing the shady stuff, whether that was the Mimic itself getting into people's heads or something, I really feel like it's more likely that it was Vanny. I'm like about 100% sure by the time of the events of Security Breach, Vanny is the one that's pulling the strings and all of that. Last one is from Fantastic Pandamania, and it is very important pigworry. Do you think this series of books will be in-game continuity? And I have answered that, I guess already, but right now I'm moving forward with yes. And I could be proven wrong, and I'm happy to be proven wrong. It doesn't matter to me one way or the other. But that's where I'm at on that. So those were all the questions. I hope that I answered them well enough. And I appreciate you guys asking them. Even if you've already read VIP, give it another listen. Maybe in this new format, you might hear something a little bit differently than you did before. And we'll have some brand new thoughts about VIP to consider. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. If you are a longtime viewer of the channel, you may already know this, but if you don't, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of let you know a little bit about what's coming up on the channel if this is your first video. Right now, we've been going through the Tales from the Pizzaplex books and truly analyzing the story, so I've got some videos on those already. Before you go, please remember to give the video a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, and subscribe to become a part of the nervous system. I upload videos every week and go live on Wednesdays and Fridays, but if you can't wait, there are videos on the screen right now just for you. Okay, bye!